President Donald Trump has agreed to a 2-week ceasefire if Iran reopens the Strait of Hormuz. This decision follows recent threats from Trump to destroy Iranian infrastructure and marks a temporary pause in ongoing hostilities. The U.S. received an Iranian 10-point peace plan. This it considers a workable basis for negotiations despite significant demands that remain unacceptable to the U.S. and its allies. These include Iran's insistence on maintaining financial control over the Strait of Hormuz and lifting all sanctions imposed by Western powers. Tensions have escalated in recent weeks with rocket attacks on Tehran and continued military strikes by the U.S. and Israel targeting Iranian infrastructure and supply routes. The ceasefire provides a brief respite, but does not address underlying disagreements that could hinder long-term peace efforts. With this temporary agreement in place, both sides will need to find common ground to negotiate lasting solutions beyond the 2-week period. On Easter Sunday, Israel launched airstrikes on southern Lebanon, including the city of Tyre. At least 11 people were killed and dozens injured across the country. Israeli defense forces have placed several southern Lebanese towns under forced evacuation orders. The attacks are part of a broader military campaign targeting Hezbollah fighters in the area. The conflict has led to significant civilian casualties and displacement, with over 1 million displaced people inside Lebanon since the start of the crisis. International humanitarian concerns are growing as access to aid is severely restricted by ongoing hostilities. Israel's defense minister announced plans to occupy territory up to the Litani River and implement scorched earth policies in border villages near the Israeli-Lebanon border. This includes destroying infrastructure such as bridges, which isolates southern Lebanon further and exacerbates humanitarian conditions for civilians. As both sides continue their engagement, civilian populations remain caught in the crossfire, facing forced evacuations and severe restrictions on movement and aid access. A shortage of estrogen patches is causing significant difficulties for women seeking hormone therapy to manage menopause and perimenopause symptoms. Since late 2025, the demand for these patches has surged by 86% over the past 5 years. The increase in demand is partly attributed to rising awareness following the FDA lifting a 20-year-old warning on hormone therapy risks last year. However, supply chain issues and tariffs have contributed to the shortage across the United States. Dr. Lawrence Streicher from Northwestern University's Feinberg School of Medicine advises that while estrogen patches are popular, women facing shortages should explore alternative forms of estrogen delivery such as creams or sprays. These alternatives may require prior authorization from insurance companies. Women dealing with this shortage face financial strain, particularly those who are full-time students or not working. Managing symptoms without prescribed treatment can be challenging, impacting their daily lives and overall well-being. The immediate next step for affected individuals is to consult healthcare providers about alternative options that might still be available. Delta Airlines raised checked baggage fees on Tuesday. This adds $10 for the first 2 bags and $50 for a third bag. The increase is effective from April 7th and targets domestic and short-haul international routes. The move follows similar actions by other major U.S. airlines in response to soaring jet fuel prices linked to conflicts in the Middle East. On average, a gallon of jet fuel now costs $4.69. Up from $2.50 before the conflict began. Delta's CEO reported that rising fuel prices have added about $400 million to Delta's operating expenses since February. This trend reflects broader industry dynamics as airlines seek to offset increased operational costs tied to volatile fuel markets. As jet fuel prices continue to rise due to global oil disruptions, travelers can expect higher baggage fees and ticket prices across the U.S. airline sector in the coming months. Pope Leo XIV strongly condemned President Donald Trump's threat to destroy an Iranian civilization, calling it truly unacceptable. Speaking outside his residence in Castel Gandolfo, Italy on April 7th, the Pope emphasized the moral and humanitarian implications of escalating military action. The Pontiff highlighted that targeting civilian infrastructure such as power plants and bridges could escalate into a war that harms innocent people. This includes children and elderly, and he urged all parties to seek peace rather than violence. Archbishop Paul Coakley, leader of Catholic bishops in the United States, echoed the Pope's stance, urging President Trump to negotiate for peace instead of resorting to military action that risks escalating tensions further. With an 8 p.m. Eastern deadline imposed by President Trump for Iran to agree to a deal regarding the Strait of Hormuz, international pressure is mounting. The Catholic Church's call for peace underscores the moral imperative in resolving conflicts without exacerbating suffering and loss of life. Republican Clay Fuller won the special election to replace Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia's 14th congressional district on Tuesday. The race concluded with a strong victory over Democratic challenger Sean Harris, securing a seat previously held by Greene. Fuller benefited from President Donald Trump's endorsement, which helped him stand out among other Republican contenders despite leading only narrowly after the first round of voting. This win marks Fuller's entry into the U.S. House of Representatives and solidifies the Republicans' slim majority in Congress. The 14th District is known for its strong Republican leanings, making it a challenging environment for Democratic candidates. Harris, who initially led the field, was unable to overcome this trend despite his local connections and military background. Fuller's victory does not guarantee long-term stability in the seat, as he will need to run again later this year to secure a full 2-year term. Primary elections are scheduled for May 19th, with possible runoffs following before the November general election. This win underscores the continued influence of President Trump on Republican politics and highlights the district's conservative base. Taylor Frankie Paul, a star from reality TV shows, has been barred by a court in Draper City, Utah, from having unsupervised visits with her 2-year-old son due to concerns about volatile behavior. 3rd District Court Commissioner Russell Means made the ruling on April 7th. The decision comes after allegations of violent incidents between Paul and the child's father, Dakota Mortensen. This includes an incident where Paul allegedly pushed him while holding their child. Paul had previously been granted primary custody, but is now restricted to 8 hours per week of supervised visits with her son. Both parents have requested protective orders against each other, which will be addressed in a hearing set for April 30th. The court's decision reflects growing concerns about potential risks to the child during unsupervised visits with Paul and highlights the ongoing legal disputes between Paul and Mortensen over allegations of domestic violence in the presence of their son. Offset, a former member of the influential hip-hop group Migos, was shot outside the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida on Monday night. The rapper is now in stable condition at a local hospital. The shooting followed an altercation that occurred earlier in the evening. Lil T.A., whose real name is Tyone Jaden Merritt, was arrested for disorderly conduct and operating a vehicle without a valid license. His lawyer stated that no weapons charges were filed against him despite his involvement in the initial conflict. Police detained a second person at the scene, but have not charged them with any crimes related to the shooting. The identity of this individual remains undisclosed as investigators continue their work. This incident adds another tragic chapter to recent years marked by fatal and near-fatal shootings involving hip-hop artists. This includes Takeoff from Migos, who was fatally shot in 2018. Offset has since pursued a solo career, releasing several critically acclaimed albums like Father of Four and Kyrie. The legal implications surrounding this shooting remain unclear as no charges have been filed for the actual incident itself. Police are investigating further to determine all those involved and their roles in the events leading up to the shooting. Taiwan's opposition leader, Chen Lai-wen, started a 6-day diplomatic visit to Beijing on Tuesday at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. This is the first such visit by a Taiwanese opposition leader in over 10 years. Cheng's trip comes amid heightened military pressure from China and ongoing debates in Taiwan's parliament about defense funding. The opposition-controlled legislature has stalled a proposed $40 billion defense budget. This was expected to fund arms deals with the United States and support Taiwan's indigenous defense industry. The visit is significant as it precedes an upcoming meeting between Xi Jinping and U.S. President Donald Trump scheduled for May. Cheng's journey aims to promote peace and could potentially ease tensions leading up to that summit by focusing discussions on economic interests, rather than contentious issues like arms sales to Taiwan. China views relations with Taiwan as an internal affair, emphasizing its opposition to military ties between the United States and Taiwan. Beijing has been stepping up its military activities near Taiwan, sending warplanes and naval vessels nearly daily, which increases regional tensions. Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party sees the island as a sovereign entity, separate from China. Meanwhile, the opposition Kuomintang recognizes only one China, interpreted as the Republic of China that includes today's Taiwan. Oil prices have dropped sharply following a conditional ceasefire agreement between the United States and Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The deal, reached on Tuesday evening, includes a 2-week suspension in hostilities aimed at easing tensions around critical shipping lanes. Brent crude oil fell by about 13% to $94.80 per barrel. This reflects reduced immediate risks to global energy supplies. Major indexes in Asia saw significant gains, with Japan's Nikkei 225 rising by 5%. South Korea's Kospi jumping nearly 6%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng up by 2.8%, and that's despite the ceasefire. Full resumption of Middle East oil production may take months or years due to extensive infrastructure damage in the region. The cost of repairing this damage could exceed $25 billion, according to Rystad Energy. The impact on global markets is immediate and positive as concerns over energy supply disruptions ease. However, long-term stabilization remains contingent upon sustained peace between conflicting parties. Recent strikes by U.S. and Israeli forces have hit critical infrastructure in Iran, including steel plants, bridges, pharmaceutical facilities, educational institutions. The attacks began on February 28, 2026, with the latest confirmed to be an April 7th assault on a bridge under construction in Karaj, which resulted in at least 13 casualties. According to Armin Mahmoodian from the University of South Florida, these strikes have disrupted up to 70% of Iran's steel manufacturing capacity. This has significant economic consequences, as steel production is crucial for Iran's non-oil economy. The damage could affect nearly 20 million tons of output, potentially impacting around 3 to 3.5% of Iran's GDP. The strikes also include pharmaceutical facilities and educational institutions. This raises concerns about the impact on healthcare and education in Iran. Legal experts warn that such attacks may constitute war crimes due to excessive harm to civilians. UN officials have expressed concern over the legality of targeting dual-use facilities, those with both civilian and military purposes. Despite these warnings, President Donald Trump has dismissed claims of potential war crimes, stating his focus is on preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. The ongoing conflict raises questions about permissible targets under international law and highlights the humanitarian cost of strikes on critical infrastructure.